Welcome to another episode of the Everyday Expertise Podcast. I'm your host, Roland Martin, and today I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. That is, if you're joining me on the day that this episode comes out on Christmas Day, and if you're not, I hope that you had an enjoyable Christmas and are having a good Christmas holiday. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to have a guest on. It's just going to be me today that you're going to get to listen to. I'm also hoping that it'll be a much shorter episode than is normal. And instead of having a guest and having one of my normal conversation and learning about someone's everyday expertise, I'm going to instead be reflecting a little bit on what the last half year of podcasting has been like, and just talk about that a little bit. And then at the end, just a little bit on Christmas 2020 to share. So to start, just a few thoughts on podcasting. So if you remember back, if you've been listening all the way through and remember back to the beginning, I talked about how the idea for this podcast was definitely a brainwave that came while I was sitting at home and during at least the beginning of the pandemic. And over the first couple months of the pandemic, I was kind of finishing up my studies, but that had kind of changed because of the moving everything online and the classes not being prepared to do that. And so I had a lot of free time. And then over the summer too, I was home a lot. And so the idea kind of came to me from that. So I thought it was, thinking back over that, I thought it was quite interesting that this project probably would not have happened if it wouldn't have been for the pandemic. And so not sure that I'm not saying that I wish that, or I'm glad that the pandemic happened, but it just was kind of an interesting thought that some of, when we look back over what things that have happened to us, and we wouldn't be at the place that we're at without the bad things that or what we think are bad things coming into our life. So anyway, just a little aside, just a little observation there. What are my thoughts been on podcasting so far? I would say it's been a very enjoyable and a great experience so far. So just a few things on that. It's really been a lot of fun. And one of the things that I've enjoyed the most is the interviews, having the chance to sit down with different guests who have different experiences, different areas of expertise, and learn from them. And probably the way that I learn the most and the thing that I enjoy the most is hearing their stories, hearing the stories from their experience that they share. And I just love listening to stories. So that's probably been one of my favorite parts of the interviews. It's also been a lot of fun learning new things from family and friends, people that I've known a long time, but often in an interview I'll learn something that I didn't know, and either a story that I didn't know happened or something about their job that I had no idea that they do or that they know. It's also been a great way to get to know guests better, to get to know people that I know really well better, but also to get to know people for the first time. I've at least one of my guests it's been the first time meeting them when they came onto the show. Another really fun thing is every Friday morning when 7 o'clock rolls around, and I usually wait until about 7:04 to check on Apple Podcasts if the new episode has gone up correctly and that everything's working. And it's always a thrilling feeling to hear the music playing and to think that, and to realize that another one of my episodes has gone out onto the airwaves, as it were. So that's really a fun feeling every Friday morning when a new episode goes out. And the last thing that I thought of that's been a lot of fun so far is hearing feedback from my listeners. And one way that's happened is that many of the members of my family are faithful listeners, and it's often been a good conversation starter to talk about something interesting from an episode. But I've also really enjoyed talking to other people about things that they've enjoyed from the podcast, or receiving emails and messages, sometimes just short little ones that people saying that they enjoyed a certain episode, but sometimes it's a little longer, and I've gotten a more detailed email from a listener talking about specific things that stood out to them. And I really, really enjoy that. So thank you to those of you that have reached out to me. So yeah, on to some other observations about what podcasting has been like over the last half year. One thing that I knew would be the case, but definitely realized as I've been in it, is that podcasting is work. And it's I knew that would be the case. I knew that it wouldn't take too long for the thrill of every little part of it to wear off, and that definitely happened. But it's been really good for me to have the regular discipline of, I planned that I would release an episode every week, and so that's meant making sure that guests are lined up, and then putting together the episode, producing it to have it ready to go every Friday morning. And it's been a good experience to have that regular discipline, that forcing myself to create something and to put my ideas and my creation out there. And I've liked the fact that I've been able to invite others to be a part of it, to have guests rather than having to come up with something every week on my own. I definitely prefer to be able to learn and share that way and ask questions. But it's been a really great experience to have that discipline and to have the work of putting out a regular podcast. All in all, it's been a really great experience. Growing up, I was always a big fan of AM radio. And what I would mostly listen to was live sports. Throughout the summers, I would often tune into the Blue Jays game. And I also enjoyed listening to sports talk shows and news shows and occasionally non-sports talk shows as well. And so I've thought at different times that it would be a lot of fun to be a talk show radio host and to interview guests and to take phone calls from people. And I never thought that I would do anything like that, but I thought it would be kind of a fun job. And so it's really neat now to have, after having done my own podcast, that kind of is the interview format. It's been really neat to think about that over the last 2 decades, it's become possible and almost, I would say, easy, relatively easy, for anyone that has a recording device and an internet connection to be able to basically share a radio show. In a lot of ways, that's what it is, and to be able to put out a podcast and to talk and share ideas and learn in this way. So it's still surreal for me to hear my voice coming through my podcasting app. And just the thought that I can share and put my voice out there. So it's been a great experience so far. Just along with that, and I think I mentioned this at maybe the episode that I had with Ricky a couple months ago, that podcasting is really an accessible thing. I mentioned just a little bit ago that all it takes is a recording device of some kind, an internet connection to be able to share your podcast out there. So really, anyone that has the inclination to create, share, create a podcast and share your voice out with others, I would really encourage you to go for it. It's a great experience, and I think you'll really be glad you did if you do that. So if there's anyone out there listening that's interested in starting a podcast, that has that inclination to create and share your own thing, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can share a little bit about what my experience has been like. And I'd be happy to if I can assist you in any way to help you get started if it's something that you want to do. I remember saying this to someone, that the world would be a better place if everyone was podcasting. So don't know if that's totally true, but I think that it's a great thing if you're taking the time to create and share in some way. Since we are here at the kind of the end of a season, a little bit of a transition point, I thought I do really need to just take a bit of time and thank those of you that have been very supportive and helped me out in getting this project going. So the first one is thank you, Ricky, for partnering with me and doing a great job with the artwork and the promotional side of promoting the podcast. and for also being the first guest on the podcast and joining me for episode 1, and also just being a really good, great encourager, giving me lots of great feedback, positive and negative, and it's just been a lot of fun to work with you over the last half year, sorry. Another person to thank is, of course, my wife, Joy. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this project and for the great feedback that you give to me and all the ideas that you have for me for guests and people that I should have on. Also want to thank Mom and Dad for giving me the recording space, allowing me to have my own bedroom to keep my equipment here and record here. And also it's been great having your encouragement, and Mom for taking pictures for the promotional images that Ricky creates, and then both of you coming on and sharing your expertise, Dad on apples and Mom on creativity, and for being willing to be a guest on the podcast. Also, Joy's family has been very encouraging as well, and I really enjoy talking with my father-in-law Brian about some of the different episodes, and was really glad that he was willing to come and share his engineering experience with us. Also, I've had the chance to have a number of family members, extended family members, on the podcast. So thank you to all the cousins, uncles, and aunts that have taken time out of their schedule to come and share with me and my listeners. So thank you, Logan, for sharing on your experience in sales. Trent talking about reffing and coaching hockey. Anthony on fitness. Tori on dog grooming. And thank you to each one of you for braving the microphone to come out and share. Thank you, Uncle Kevin and Uncle Steve, for sharing from your business and board experience. Had a great time talking with Aunt Sharon about teaching, and I had the privilege of teaching with her for a number of years as well. And also my Aunt Rose coming on and talking about cooking. And also I'd mentioned this before, but it was great catching up with old friends and making some new ones. And so a few of my other guests, it was great having Wendell Glick sharing about music, Gabriel Yancey talking about his vet work, Kevin Bauman talking about entrepreneurship and his experience starting a business, Roseanne Bauman on being a college professor and teaching in a nursing program here locally, Cam Stryker on his work as a respiratory therapist. Richard Bean joined me in September to talk about optometry, and he's also been a really great encourager for me and a supporter of this project as well. Had a great time talking to Chet Martin about his experience with horses. Elisa Martin had some fascinating stories about her experience in emergency nursing, working in the emergency department. I had a great time learning from Lester Brubaker about what it's like to design buildings and the business that he runs there. I had a fun conversation with Jamie Shantz and learning what he does in programming and developing feed mill systems. Kerry Martin brought a unique perspective from his job on a university campus. And then last week, Joe Ritzma talked about the math tutoring business that he runs and that I've had the privilege of working at for the last year. So yeah, it's been really, really great learning from each of these guests, and thank you to each one of you that came and shared your expertise with us. Last of all, I want to thank every one of you for listening. Whether this is the first episode that you're listening to, or whether you take the time to listen to 1 or 2 hours of me every week, I really appreciate it, and hope that you've been learning along with me from the conversations that I've had the privilege to have. So thank you to each one of you for listening. And I hope that you'll come back for another year. I'm planning to keep this project going, to continue right on into 2021, releasing every Friday morning. So hope you'll continue to tune in. It's going to have its share of challenges. Living here in Southern Ontario, we just found out a few days ago that we're going to be entering a lockdown here. And so because of that, I won't be able to conduct in-person interviews, unfortunately, for the next little while. Don't know how long that's going to last. And so don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I'll talk about this more next week. Next week's episode, I'm planning to kind of be an introduction to the next season. Again, it will be a little bit of shorter one, coming out on New Year's Day. And so yeah, probably gonna try to get remote interviews set up, see how that goes. Maybe do some more solo episodes too. So it's disappointing, but hopefully I'll be able to keep the podcast going through that. So yeah, it'll have its share of challenges, but I'm hoping that I can continue to produce content that encourages and teaches you something. So I hope that you'll continue to tune in. But most of all, my main goal is that I hope that this podcast inspires you to find everyday experts around you and to enrich your life by learning something new from them. So it's one thing to listen to a podcast, and I hope that I can that you can learn things from the podcast. But I think we learn so much more from the people right around us, and being willing to show an interest in them and to really learn from them. And it's amazing how much encouraging it is to have someone to share with. So be that person for someone, but also how much our lives are enriched when we learn from those around us too. So I hope that this podcast can be an encouragement for you in that. Well, that's probably enough reflection for today. And so thank you for kind of tuning in for my thoughts on what the last half year podcasting has been like. But just before I sign off, said that I wanted to share just a little bit about Christmas, since this podcast is coming out on Christmas Day. And what I'm going to do here is share a poem that Joy and I wrote. It was for our church Christmas program this past week. And normally we do our different Sunday school classes would share something, but because of trying to maintain our distance, each family bubble was encouraged to share something. And when Joy and I were discussing ideas, trying to figure out what we were going to do, it was also about at the time that we were realizing that where things were going in Ontario and what we were hearing on the news, that there was a really good chance that we weren't going to be able to get together with our families this Christmas. And so we were lamenting that and really disappointed about that. And somehow through that, we came up with this idea to write this poem. And that's what inspired this. So yeah, the poem is called How COVID Stole Christmas. And I'll end with this. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the flat, not a creature was stirring, not even a rat. The folks were depressed, for as everyone knows, no family was gathering, not even the Fords. No caroling, no turkey, no games, and no fun. Mask-wearing routines and vaccine talk begun. The Salvation Army stand stood unmanned. Used hand sanitizer, they said, or be banned. Costco zoo lines are growing while small businesses fail. My Amazon gifts are delayed in the mail. No Handel's Messiah, no Christkindl Market. Last year's recording just does not quite cut it. Come join us on Zoom, they said with a smile. You won't know the difference, just give us a dial. Cases are rising while hospitals fill. Unprecedented is now run-of-the-mill. Stockpiles are well stocked, but to nobody's glee. Toilet paper doesn't work to decorate the tree. Like the Grinch who stole Christmas, our lives seem a loss, for COVID-19 has swept in like a boss. How can we have joy when there's nothing to do? For Christmas means family and eating, it's true. But maybe there's more than what first meets the eye. What if all is not lost? Let's do more than just sigh. Whether COVID or not, the truth still remains that Jesus was born and forever still reigns. Though it's sad that we'll miss things of this season, to have hope and good cheer, there still is a reason. We can't lose the fact that God came as a babe, and that in a crib lowly, his sweet head was laid. He lives on high still. He's truly alive. He feels all our pain, and always will strive to free us and help us and cause us to love. What hope was sent down by our Father above. That's all for now. I hope that you'll join me next week on the Everyday Expertise Podcast.